Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today we got some big news about the upcoming Divination cards in patch 3.9. Now we don't have every single one of them yet, but we do have most of them. I think we have 12 or 14 now. And one of the things about Divination cards is that they can often influence which maps you want to prioritize running on the Atlas. It's no longer going to be possible to set up an Atlas so that you pretty much only run one map, but you will be able to allow these divination cards to influence which maps you want to prioritize, and it may help you decide which octant of the Atlas you wish to focus on the most. Of course, you may decide not to focus on one octant, and if you want to kill the top tier version of the Awakener, the new boss, then you will need to have a setup where you do where you basically have an equal focus on all 8 octants of the Atlas. So there's going to be a give or take to the various options that you've got. But firstly, we got this little piece of information here that is causing Reddit to go a bit crazy. And this is an example of what an Elder Guardian map mission from Zana is going to look like. Now, at the moment, we only know of Elder Guardians coming through Zana maps. However, it's possible that they'll come from other sources as well. You'll notice that it's got implicit mods, which maps don't usually have. Area is influenced by the Elder. Map is occupied by the Enslaver. So this is going to be a map that has a boss at the end of it, one of the Elder's Guardians. It's a tier 16 and it's a carcass. Now we've got here, area has patches of shocking ground. Players are cursed with temporal chains. Monsters deal damage as fire, damage as cold. Boss deals increased damage. Boss has increased attack and cast speed. Players can't regen. Now normally those mods wouldn't matter on an Elder Guardian. However, there is a change. Elder Guardians are no longer in their own instance. This is going to make these fights, it's going to have 2 real effects on them. Firstly, they are going to be much harder than they are in the current version of the game, which I think might be a bit refreshing for some people. I know I'm looking forward to having encounters with the Elder Guardians actually sometimes kick my ass again, whereas currently they're just basically press button, acquire loot, maybe lose 10% XP if you stuff up. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to try these maps and are going to fail them. And I personally look forward to that. I always look forward to having maps where you fail sometimes, where you give it your best shot, but all 6 portals are not enough. You just get your ass kicked and you realize, hey, I need to get better in order to come back for this. Maybe I need to improve my character. Maybe I need to improve technical aspects of my gameplay. On the flip side though, some individual mods are going to be absolutely heinous on some of the Elder Guardians. I'm thinking, amongst other things, of getting a Purifier with increased AoE is going to be an absolute nightmare. A Constrictor with multiple projectiles is going to be pretty savage. And probably worst of all, I think, is going to be an Eradicator with things that reduce your character's ability to tank his undodgeable hits. So this will be either increased boss speed on the Eradicator, or potentially reduced regeneration, crippled regeneration like this mod here. There's going to be a number of things that are going to make the Eradicator fight really brutal when they come up. However, say I'm up for the challenge, I'm looking forward to it, and if I get my ass kicked a few times, well, I get my ass kicked a few times. That'll be funny for everyone that watches. The big news though, I think, is the divination cards. So say 14 are being added in this league, and we have about 11 or 12 of them now. We go through these, give a bit of a sense as to how rare I think they'll be, and as to how desirable I think they are to chase. So firstly, we have baited expectations. There's a bit of a rumour that that this may have been Bex from Grinding Gear Games. She was gifted a divination card commissioned by someone, and because the first letter of the first word is B, and then it has an EX on the second word. That made people think maybe that this trolley divination card may actually be from Bex herself. The map sort of implies that it could be an Arid Lake map, although I'm expecting that this will potentially have some sort of meme condition that you need in order to generate it. And it gives a unique fishing item. Of course, I could talk more about fishing and how important it is in the game, but then I'd wind up being muted, so I'm just going to leave it there. The first rule of Fish Club is you don't talk about Fish Club. Second up, we have Deathly Designs. Now, I have no real sense of where this is likely to drop from. The flavor text says, Karuri was correct. There is virtue in honoring my ancestors. That sort of implies that it could be related to Calm in some way, although the actual reward for it doesn't really relate in that sense. Granting a level 21 trap gem that is 23% quality is something that is both fairly powerful, but also has a fair chance to end up as something that is of very, very low, very, very low improvement over a level 20 gem with 20 quality. So, for instance, trap and the various skill gems, the ones that are actually traps themselves, like for instance, Lightning Spire Trap will be quite a bit better as a 21-23 than as a 20-20. But support gems related to traps, which I believe will be included in the list of trap gems, and I believe it will be any skill gem that has the trap tag on it. So something like charge traps gains almost nothing from being level 21 or from being 23 quality. I don't think this is going to be a particularly high value divination card. I do think it's going to be something that anyone playing a trap-based character may wish to purchase several sets of if they're playing in a trade league. But otherwise, I think you can probably pick up level yourself a level 20 gem. Then, when you get the opportunity, level up some 20 quality level 20 gems, and then try to get them to 21 via Val Orbs and/or the Lapidary Lens in Elva's Temple. Next up, we have Divine Justice, which is one of my favourite divination cards. This has not just been spoiled now; this was spoiled at ExileCon. But essentially, this gives a unique helmet with a random Eternal Labyrinth enchantment on it. This is going to be 99% of the time you are going to get total and utter rubbish. 0.5% of the time you are going to get a premium Labyrinth enchant on a completely wrong helmet. You might wind up with, let's assume that the Scourge Arrow enchant is still top tier next league. You might wind up with that on the Baron. And that will be sad but funny. But 0.5% of the time or so, you're going to get a premium Labyrinth enchant on a synergistic base. You might get the Scourge Arrow one on a Devoter's Devotion. You might get some powerful caster enchant on a caster-themed unique helmet. When this happens, you are going to hit a massive payday. Essentially, I see the Divine Justice card as having two main roles. If you're in solo self-found, this might end up giving you a direction it might point you in a direction for a future character. Much like my divination card for the two-implicit corrupted Skin of the Loyal can do. It can give you, if you get a solid hit from it, then it can say, oh yeah, here's a suggestion for how you might want to build your next character, or it can be a puzzle to be solved. The other purpose this will serve is as a lottery ticket. Essentially, if you're someone who is risk averse, you'll be able to sell your Divine Justices, I think, for a fair amount to other players who are willing to pay maybe 5 chaos, maybe 10, maybe 30 for a slim chance of getting a 50 plus Exalt payoff. And those 50 plus Exalt payoffs will happen from this divination card, and they will also be they'll be really exciting when they do. So for that reason, I think this is going to be a very popular divination card, and it's going to be one that if we can ascertain where it drops, it will be something that will be that might steer you towards running that content more often in order to get this card. Next up, we have the big one, Etched in Blood. Let's come back to this. This is the most exciting of all the cards that have been released so far, and it's something that will be the target of lots of speculation from the flavor text as to where it might drop. But we'll come back to it in a sec. The Fishmonger, I'm contractually required not to talk any more about fishing, so I will not talk about fishing or how albino royal feathers can be abused in fishing. Next up, we have the Bones. A level 21 Vaal Summon Skeletons. It's hard to get level 21 Vaal gems in general. There are several sources of them. The most common of them is the divination card that gets a level 21 skill gem at random, and that will often pick a Vaal gem. But the best way to get them yourself, it really requires you to use the Lapidary Lens on a level 20 normal gem. For that reason, this could be quite a rare divination card, and it will be quite a sought after and powerful one. Vaal Summon Skeletons is a powerful skill. It's one that has two main uses. The first one is for minion builds that want burst damage, particularly on bosses. Cast Val Summon Skeletons, and it also, of course, Val Summon Skeletons also contains a level 21 Summon Skeletons gem. Cast your Val Summon Skeletons and let them do the burst damage that you need to survive a tough encounter. The other use that I've sometimes seen it used for, it's sort of fallen out of popularity lately, is to stick it on a build that is not a summoner, that just throws up Val Summon Skeletons as a form of decoy totem, really. It's just something that will distract the enemies and deal an appreciable amount of damage to a bunch of enemies, but with no investment in minions. I will assume that the Bones Divination card will come from one or more undead-themed map tile sets. It doesn't seem to be one that gives such a special reward that it would be locked behind hard-to-farm content. So for that reason, if I'm right on that front, I think a lot of players will be really keen to get their hands on a set of this. Ultimately, you're probably going to want to end up with a 2120 or 2123 Summon Skeletons if you can get it, but level 21 Val Summon Skeletons is very good even with no quality. Next up we have the Craving. Now, this is a unique jewel that I've forgotten what it did, so I went and looked it up, and it is the Threshold Jewel for Raised Spectre, and it is a cool Threshold gem. So baseline 6 to 8% increased area of effect, but when you put it into an intelligence area of the tree, Raised Spectres have a 50% chance to gain Soul Eater for 30 seconds on kill. Now Soul Eater, if you've never played with a Headhunter before, or a Xerfy's Heart, what Soul Eater does is it causes enemies that are killed within a certain radius of you, or in this case of that Spectre, to instead grant you a stacking and very powerful buff. This stops them from being used for Val Souls, so Unending Hunger is a total non-bo with any sort of Val skills that you might want to use in your build. They really do not work well together. But those Spectres will get juiced up, they'll be super powerful, super tanky, and super fast. This is a pretty rare Threshold Jewel, and it's one that previously hadn't really been available in solo self-found play. On the flip side, it's something that is pretty available in trade leagues. I think this Divination card has been designed primarily to appeal to people who are solo self-found players. I think for trade league players like me, it'll just be a mediocre drop. It'll be like, oh look, I got a couple of chaos in the drop. But for people that are playing in solo self-found, the ability to target farm this is going to be incredible. Next up we have the Escape, which is a Divination card for 7 League Step. 7 League Step was introduced in Perandus League and drops in Perandus Manor. It is a unique set of boots with no mods other than 50% increased move speed and with a minimum level of 1. This makes them an absolutely insane item to power level your ults. However, they're expensive. Because they drop in Perandus Manor, and Perandus Manor is a rare map, and only 1 in 5 Perandus Manors seems to drop the 7 League Step, these boots are very rare and very sought after. Usually they go in a trade league for anywhere from 3 to 10 exalts, sort of depends upon the economy of the league. And I think one thing that would be really nice with 7 League Step is the ability to turn it in at the item level of your choosing. Which, if you're not familiar with what happens with Divination card turn-ins and item level, the item level that you receive for the item that when it's returned to you will be equal to the minimum of 80 and your character's level. So if you turn this in on a level 1 or 2 character, you will get an item level 1 7 League Step. That severely restricts the pool of corruptions that are available, and importantly, restricts them to the lowest minimum level corruptions. And this means that there will be some really impressive 7 League Steps with 2 implicit corruptions that some of the very richest players will have as a luxury item when they are leveling alternate characters. At the moment, I believe you can only get 7 League Step as an item level 79 item. So that's going to be an interesting little change there. Anyways, we will come back to Etched in Blood, but let's just quickly go through the other Divination cards that were revealed earlier. The Chosen is for the upgraded version of Skin of the Loyal. So this is Skin of the Lords. It will not have a Val modifier on it. it will be just Skin of the Lords, so six random sockets on a 6-link. It'll always be 6-linked. The colors can't be changed in any way, and it will have a random keystone from the passive tree. So if you're lucky, this could be something as good as Phase Acrobatics, which you can then get without having Acrobatics as well for an incredible layer of defense. If you're unlucky, then you could wind up getting something like Blood Magic on it that is build defining, but that every build that wants it already picks it up because they want nodes behind it. This would be an really interesting one to see how it plays out in actual play. I've never used Skin of the Lords. I do like Skin of the Loyal a lot. Skin of the Lords is sometimes it has a higher potential. Has a higher potential at the top side, and so it can be a bit of a cool item. Be interesting to see how this does play in practice. I'm not sure where this will drop. I assume it will be somewhere Chaola themed, or potentially somewhere Val themed because it is corrupted. That said, this item is always corrupted, no matter how you acquire it. Skin of the Lords is always corrupted. It can never exist as a non-corrupted item. Next up we have Friendship. A Master seeks help, the Nico version. This is essentially an indirect source of not quite as good as a Sulfite Scarab, and will basically be something that is an alternative to it'll be somewhat of an alternative to the Divination cards for Sulfite Scarabs that exist in the game at the moment. I absolutely love the flavor text on this, and the way that Nico is hooded here, sitting down, it looks like you just can't work out, is that Nico? Is that the Shaper? I mean, you know it's Nico from the context, but that could be the Shaper, or it could even be the hooded guy from the Path of Exile 2 Act 1 demo that we saw at ExileCon. So yeah, really interesting divination card that'll be a bit of fun, but I do think most people will just treat this as a slightly inferior version of a rusted Sulfite Scarab. Squander Prosperity is an alternative way to get Parandus mana, and I've mentioned this before. I do love watching the cat get more and more worried after hearing maybe he's being sold to Chimeria. He is certainly getting the hell out of there. The other divination cards that featured this character and this cat recently have all been related to betrayal content in some way, so maybe this will be from Giannis Parandus. We will have to find out. Being corrupted doesn't really matter on Parandus mana, as the map doesn't really have any... it's never worth using a Divine Orb on, so it doesn't really change much that it's corrupted. And lastly, Sucker of the Sinless. This is for the unique Flask Bottled Faith, which comes from the Synthesis content, and specifically from the Cortex. Cortexes are rare, they only come from Zana, and like the Elder Guardian maps, they will be with map mods. Cortexes are hard. Cortex is probably second to all as the hardest boss in the game at the moment. I think you could even make a case that the Cortex can be the hardest boss in the game. And so this is an interesting one. This flask is incredibly powerful, and has been incredibly rare in recent leagues where it's existed at all. In Synthesis, it was a few exalts. In the current league, Blight, it's the first time it's been available since Synthesis, and most of the league it spent its time in 20 to 25 exalts. In Standard, before the Blight League changes brought new sources of Bottled Faith, I do believe that this flask was going for 70 to 100 exalts in the Standard League during that period, although I think it'll fall now. Very, very powerful flask. I think it's arguably the single best flask in the game, and it is, yeah, just an incredibly powerful item. This is not going to be a common divination card. From the artwork, potentially could come from Conley the Unrepentant, the Basilica map boss, but I kind of expect this to be gated behind a less accessible encounter than Conley the Unrepentant. So for that reason, I'm not going to put any speculation on where this will come from. But the artwork certainly does sort of scream innocence, and map innocence is the Basilica boss. But lastly, let's talk Etched in Blood. Now, Rigwald's Quills with 2 implicit corruptions on it. There's been a bit of speculation as to how valuable this will be, and I feel that a set of this divination card will be 2.5 to 3 times the value of a set of the normal Rigwald's Quills divination card. The reason for that is that if you put 4 Rigwald's Quills onto the Corruption Altar, your outcomes on average will be 1 two-implicit corrupted Rigwald's Quills, 1 Rigwald's Quills that becomes corrupted with no changes, and that's basically been a socket bleaching, 1 Rigwald's Quills that is outright destroyed, and 1 that bricks as a Shaper or Elder rare, which is effectively destroyed because those aren't going to hold any value. So what you're doing, what you would get there from 4 of them would initially make you think, well, you sort of got to say it's 3 times as good as a normal set of Rigwald's Quills. However, there is a little bit of a catch. If you're using the Elder Corruption Altar, you're going to be putting onto it a Rigwald's Quills that has an above average projectile damage roll. Rigwald's Quills has 2 variable explicit mods on it. One of them is lightning resistance, 10 to 20%, and doesn't really matter very much. The other mod, though, is 30 to 50% increased damage with projectiles. A 50% Rigwald's that gets good corruptions is worth a lot more than a 30% Rigwald's with the same corruptions. And so for that reason, I think that there will be, even though creating a 2 implicit corrupted Rigwald's Quills via the Corruption Altar has the additional opportunity cost of using 4 of your Corruption Altars, I think that this is still not going to be as valuable as 3 of the normal Rigwald's Quills item. However, this is one of the biggest lottery tickets that we have seen in a long time because of the possibility to roll one of the 2 God tier quiver corruptions. If you've ever looked at the table of corruptions that can roll on quivers, and let's actually bring that up now while we're talking about them. This is the listing of the corruptions that can drop. So you have flat cold damage, flat fire damage, flat lightning damage. We'll skip these 2 for now. Cold damage leeches life, fire damage leeches life. Projectiles deal increased damage for each time they've chained, each time they've pierced. Lightning damage leeched is life. Physical is extra, cold, fire, or lightning. And point blank. Now, point blank could conceivably be a god tier option, except that almost every archer build is close enough to it on the passive tree that they take it anyway. The big ones here are the 2 rare ones. Bow attacks fire an additional arrow, and skills chain +1 times. These are the rarest of the corruptions. Most of these corruptions have a weighting of 1000, and a couple of them are 500. This is basically the probability that you get the specific corrupts. These 2 are weighted at 200 each. That means that they are the rarest corruptions, and also they're the most desirable. However, if you get a Rigwald's Quills in a bow league that has one of these 2 corruptions on it, you will be able to sell it for anywhere from 100 exalts to 500 exalts, depending upon the specifics of the league. If you get the absolute god tier result of getting both of them on the same, there's only one of these known to exist in Path of Exile at the moment, and I would say that you would be looking at being able to sell that to a standard player at least for 50 mirrors of Calandra or more. We're talking one of the most expensive items that exists in the game. Likewise, if you hit bow attacks fire an additional arrow and point blank, or chain +1 and point blank, you're looking at a staggering amount of currency as well. So for that reason, Etched in Blood is both an implicitly high value item, as Rigwald's Quills is an excellent quiver, best in slot for many builds, and it also has this interesting jackpot potential. Having a quick look at the flavor text though, when you strive to write your name on the dense pages of history, someone else inevitably must be crossed out. This poses a question because there have been a lot of characters in the lore of Path of Exile that have succeeded someone else in some way, basically through violence. This could conceivably fit Azaro, as one emperor always replaces another. This could fit any of the Temple of Atsuatl architects, because when you kill one of them, you then clear the way. This is in an incursion. You then clear the way for the temple for the other architect that was competing for that spot in the temple to become stronger. This could also fit Kurgle or Ahamanti, the Delve bosses, because each of their civilizations was built on the ruins of all the Crystal King's civilization. It could also fall, and this is the thing that I'm speculating the most on. It could also fall as a drop from the Awakener of Worlds in the new content. The reason I think that is that he is replacing the Shaper and the Elder. And so essentially, he's writing his name on the dense pages of history by crossing out the Shaper and the Elder and the existing Zana storyline. So there's a lot of ways in lore that this could come from. The artwork, however, does lend a little bit of credence to the theory that it is coming from Atsuatl in some way. And the Temple of Atsuatl, whilst it has a fair few divination cards now, it doesn't have any that are super chase. So for that reason, I'm really excited to see where this drops from. The other place it could conceivably be, it'd be from the bosses of 8-mod Dark Forest or 8-mod Lair maps, because they are Rigwald, at least at the moment. And then, who knows, bosses might get shifted around as well. So lots of possibilities. I am confident that this divination card will be rare. If you've ever farmed the existing Rigwald's Quills divination card, which drops in the Lair map and in the Dark Forest map, it's pretty rare. It's not staggeringly rare. It's not like the Doctor, but it does feel about as rare as the Nurse divination card. I'm expecting that this card may actually be Doctor rarity, considerably rarer than the other divination card for Rigwald's Quills. That said, I'm excited to see where it drops, and I think that if it drops from a map, quite a number of people will shape their atlases. Well, not shape, but will watchstone their atlases in such a way that they prioritize getting as many as possible of the map that this drops in. Anyways, I'm going to leave it here at this point. I'm always interested by the divination card news drops that we get like this, because there's so much to say about them. If you've got any comments, questions, or the like, definitely fire away below. Otherwise, have a good one.